Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government to assist this board. To my left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise, accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts that you present here tonight. We as a board must consider the 5 following conditions. They're listed over here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record and proceed to tell us why you need the variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow after 12 o'clock, or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have one adjournment tonight, and that is case 1-17469, St. Catherine's of Siena. Was there anyone here for that case? That case has been adjourned to February 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18268, Lamia Khan, 1287 Town Line Road, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Town Line Road and Locust Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 1 foot for an existing second floor exterior staircase. Thank you. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Larry Buscemi, P.O. Box 679, Mount Sinai, New York, representing the applicant.
Can you just spell your last name so we get it correct?
Absolutely. Buscemi.
Thank you.
Larry.
You submitted the power of attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
This is an application for an exterior staircase going to the second floor of the home. It's been there for many years. It was there when the homeowner purchased the house 23 years ago. As far as an impact on the neighborhood, it is sort of hidden behind fences and trees. Not really visible from, it's not visible from the main road. It's visible a little bit from the side road, Locust. It's not substantial because it's a small structure, just being a staircase. It's not a deck or anything. Cannot be achieved by any alternative method because the only second-story entrance to the house is in that location. The variance would not cause an adverse effect to the environment because it's just decking, creating a staircase. It's permeable. It wouldn't create runoff or anything along those lines. It was of course built by the homeowner, so it was self-imposed by the previous homeowner, not these. They inherited the staircase.
This staircase was there when the owner purchased the house?
That is what I'm told, yes, 23 years ago.
Why is it needed?
I asked her that question myself, and she gave me two answers. The first is that she has a son who comes home and stays, and when he does, he has his friends over, and they're raucous, and she likes for them not to traipse through the house where she is. The other answer is that there's a large open space there, and she holds like prayer meetings up there, and she doesn't want the people coming for the meetings going through her actual dwelling.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18269, Memorial Sloan Kettering, 650 Comac Road, Comac. The location of the property is the east side of Comac Road, 200 feet north of Henry Street. The property is zoned OB. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered, slopes greater than 15%, to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope greater than 25%, to increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 16 feet, to reduce the minimum required landscape islands by 7, reduce the minimum required setbacks and buffer yards adjoining a residence district in the side and rear yards from 50 feet to 40 feet, eliminate the required 6-foot-high buffer fence adjoining a residence district.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Kathleen Deegan Dixon. I'm a partner at the law firm of Fercelli, Deegan, Tirana, located at 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. I'm here on behalf of Memorial Sloan Kettering this evening. We're seeking the variances stated by Mr. Donato at 650 Comac Road in Comac, in the town of Smithtown. I do have smaller handsets of the rendered site plan and the site plans that are before you. I don't know if that would be easier for you to deal with tonight?
Sure. I'll give them out. Okay. Thank you.
So the purpose of our application this evening is we are seeking variances essentially to permit the an expansion of the existing parking on the site. We're seeking to increase the parking from 427 spaces to 453 spaces in order to accommodate the current parking demand. Many of the spaces sought to be improved with parking were depicted on prior approved plans as land-banked parking. They were always contemplated to be developed at some point, but not until they were needed, and now they are needed. Memorial Sloan Kettering's location in Comac was established in 2014 in order to provide Long Island residents with the same expert cancer care that they receive at MSK's New York City locations, but closer to home. This location provides chemotherapy, immunotherapies, radiation therapies, along with other therapies and imaging services that allow residents of Suffolk County someplace closer to where they live so they don't have to trek into Manhattan for their treatments. Needless to say, it's a very popular location, and it's really made a tremendous difference in the quality of life of many, many cancer patients on Long Island. Since their establishment about 6 years ago, they've outgrown their parking facilities and now seek an expansion. Similar variances to those that we're seeking tonight were granted by this board in 2013 when the facility was constructed. I have a copy of the decision of this board.
You're speaking about the addition to the original
Yes.
facility.
Yes, thank you. From December 11, 2013, if I could submit them for the board's review.
Thank you.
So the application this evening actually brings the site closer into compliance with the code in many respects, as one of the variances sought at that time was for insufficient parking, where 601 parking spaces were required and 427 were provided. So our application this evening is to increase the parking count on the site, which will bring it closer into conformity with the town's parking code. Of the current approved parking count, 395 parking spaces are constructed and 32 spaces are land banked. Also, part of the proposal is to reconfigure part of the southerly parking lot to add 6 ADA accessible spaces closest to the entrance in this area here. To convert 3 existing ADA spaces into regular parking spaces, thereby increasing that count by 3. So there were ADA spaces in these parking aisles that those have been replaced with the new proposed spaces in front of the building. And so the hashed area will now become a normal parking space, a regular parking space. Also to convert some interior landscape islands into 7 new parking spaces, and to add 10 new parking spaces, 8 in this location here on the east side, and 2 down here on the southeast side. The 8 spaces on the east are to accommodate employee parking. So these 8 new employee spaces and the construction of the 32 land bank spaces require relief from the code restriction on the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, which is for slopes greater than 15%, pursuant to Section 322-19C, and also 19E, for structures within 10 feet. Structures within 10 feet of a slope higher than 25%. We also require relief from the code that restricts the height of a retaining wall to 6 feet, which is Section 322-13E. The proposed retaining walls are in the area of the 32 land bank spaces here on the north end of the site, and the 8 spaces on the east side of the site. And they're necessary in order to construct these new parking spaces. The property drops off, has a substantial slope that goes down toward Crooked Hill Road, and in order to even out and level out the site enough to accommodate these parking spaces, there's no other alternative other than to create these retaining walls. A portion of the wall that's proposed to support the land banks, the 32 land bank spaces, will be 16 feet high at its highest point, and a portion of the wall to support the 8 employee spaces on the east side of the site will be 8.5 feet tall at its highest point. So we need variances from that section of the code. You'll notice that the MSK property is somewhat unique in that it's bordered on 3 sides by roadways: Comac Road to the west, Henry Street to the south, and Crooked Hill Road to the east. And the other abutting uses are either commercial uses or vacant land. So this parcel here is vacant, this parcel here is vacant. This is commercial property, and this is a farm stand, although it's zoned residential. The site is heavily screened on all sides by trees and wooded areas, and the new constructed parking spaces would not be visible from the adjacent properties or from the street. The 2 retaining walls supporting the new employee parking on the east side and the newly constructed land bank parking on the north side will not be visible during most of the year because of the heavily treed conditions. Probably during the height of winter, when the trees are off, when the leaves are off the trees, it may be visible, but because of its distance from the property line and the elevation change, it's not going to have any impactful visual impact on the surrounding area. Part of the relief that we're seeking tonight is also a variance from 322-20B1 to reduce the minimum buffers adjoining a residential district. As I mentioned, much of the surrounding area is zoned residential, although it's not used residentially. The immediately adjacent parcels are either vacant, as I pointed out, or used in a commercial manner. So the reduction in these buffer areas, while they may be adjacent to a residentially zoned area, they will not have any impact on a property that's actually used for residential purposes. The benefit that Memorial Sloan Kettering will derive if the variances are granted are really a benefit to their patients. Most patients take advantage of the complimentary valet parking that already exists on site, and that will continue despite the increase in parking that's going to be provided, and it'll continue free of charge. But the site does get crowded during their busiest times, and sometimes it gets a little unruly and a little unsightly with people parking in places that are not parking spaces. So my client found that it would make more sense to actually construct the parking spaces that were considered during their original site plan application, and to make it orderly and make sure that everybody could be accommodated. The addition of 58 spaces on the site will be a big positive in the convenience and appearance of the site, and will have no negative impacts on the surrounding community or the environmental conditions in the area. The retaining walls to be constructed are going to be engineered. They are engineered by VHB, and I do have Angelo Leno from VHB here this evening if you have any questions regarding the site engineering or the retaining walls. They'll be constructed in a structurally sound and also attractive manner. They'll have an attractive finished appearance, so any part of it that you can see through the trees will, it's not going to look like a sheer wall, a sheer concrete wall. The need for the relief, whether or not it's self-created, that's sort of a tough question. I mean, MSK is a victim of its own success because of the great need for these services in the area. The expansion of the parking area is something that was contemplated by the town board and by this board when the original application was before it, with the idea that at some point in the future this expansion would be necessary. So the expansion goes a little bit beyond that. We really require some relief for the elimination of the landscape islands in the parking area as well. But that, again, will have no impact on the community at large. The site is still heavily landscaped. There'll still be the accessible walking path through the middle of the parking lot. The elimination of those landscaped islands will not impact the site circulation in any way. So really, it's just to pick up as many additional parking spots as necessary as possible. I do want to give you a copy of the decision of the Board of Site Plan Review decision from May of 2014 that does require that the 32 parking spaces shall not be improved without approval. Our next step after this will be to go for site plan review. So if this board sees fit to grant the variances, that will be our next stop. So I submit these to you.
Thank you.
So I also have Cheryl Hoyt from Memorial Sloan Kettering. She's in charge of all the outpatient operations on Long Island. If you have any questions regarding their operations or anything to do with the facility, and as I mentioned, I have Angelo Leno from VHB Engineering, who's the site engineer here, who can answer any questions you may have regarding the engineering of the walls or the layout of the site.
Right. I just have one question.
Yes.
The land-based parking on the east end, that's, I think you indicated the maximum height is 16 feet. Does that slope down? And if it does, to what height?
Turn that over to you.
Okay. Before you start, could you just introduce yourself?
Sure.
Your name, spell your last name, and give the address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Angelo Leno. I'm with VHB Engineering. My last name is Laino. VHB Engineering, 100 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, 11788.
Thank you.
I am the resident engineer for the project, the engineer of record. Just to quickly answer your question, the max height of the wall will be 16 feet, and it will decrease down to 5 to 6, between 5 and 6 feet on the low side.
Okay, and the same thing with the other retaining wall. The maximum height was 8 feet, and that's going to also slope down?
Yes, sir. It'll slope down to about 1 or 2 feet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No question.
No? Planning?
No, thank you.
Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
It's the first case. The next case on the agenda, 18270 Ralph Kennedy, 22 Landing Meadow Road, Smithtown, the location of the property, the southwest corner of Landing Meadow Road and Tyler Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to permit accessory structures in the required front yard, reducing the minimum front yard from 60 feet to 14 feet for an existing 646 square foot detached garage, and from 60 feet to 43 feet for an existing 120 square foot shed. Increase the total square footage of the existing accessory structures in the required front yard from 750 square feet to 766 square feet, with a combined square footage of 646 square feet for the detached garage and 120 square feet for the shed.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You are the applicant, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Ralph Kennedy, 22 Landing Meadow Road, Smithtown.
And would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, Carmine, please.
Fine, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carmine Grasso from Architects, office at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I'm representing Ralph Kennedy in his application to legalize a built prior 646 square foot detached garage and a built prior 120 square foot shed. Both of these structures are in the required front yard. The garage, as Mr. Donadio had said, is set back 14 feet from the front property line on Tyler Road, and the shed is set back 43 feet. The total area of the two structures is 766 square feet, which is 16 square feet over the allowable 750 square foot area for accessory structures. Because of the location of these structures in the required front yard, it's kind of questionable whether or not that variance is actually required. But if it is required, we feel that the 16 square feet is a very minor request. Again, the structures are located in the front yard, and this is because the shape of the property would not allow them to conform to the code without taking up the majority of the backyard. As you see on the survey, the property is only 103 feet wide, so to put the garage and the shed both beyond that 60-foot front yard setback would really leave nothing for my client in his rear yard. The property is located in the LWRP DEC corridors. I had been in discussions with Planning Department about this. LWRP approval is not required because it's an accessory structure and the variance requests are for setbacks. So that eliminates the need for any approval from LWRP. And the DEC is not required due to the age of the structures. They were constructed over 30 years ago, and the distance to the river is well over 500 feet. Excuse me. The garage itself that you see in the larger portion in yellow over there is was constructed in a location of a shed that was previously existed on the site and was on file in the town. I just wanted to also mention that the lot is a legally non-conforming half-acre lot that's located in R43 zoning, which exacerbates the problem because it makes any construction difficult on the site to meet the zoning requirements because of the setbacks. In regard to the area variance considerations, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, we feel that it won't be because of the fact that the structures have existed for approximately 30 years and it hasn't had a negative impact in that time. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by another means, we feel that it can't because of the locations of the structures, again, are dictated by the shape and size of the property. Whether the variance is substantial. The setback variance for the garage we feel is substantial, but it's necessary due to the restrictions of the site. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse impact on the physical environment or neighborhood of the district, no, there is no additional sanitary flow associated with this application, and there's very little electrical use for that. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, my client did build these structures without the benefit of a permit, but we feel that it's not self-created only because of the size of the shape of the property again, and there's really no other location that they can be put on the site. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No, thanks. No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18271, John McDonald, 22 Loft Road, Smithtown. The location of the property, the north side of Loft Road, 339 feet west of Croft Lane. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the total side yards from 60 feet to 48 feet for an existing 588 square foot barn.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Kamiotek, K-M-I-O-T-E-K, and I'm here representing John McDonald because he lives in North Carolina and he can't be here.
Do you have power of attorney?
I do.
Could you please present it to Mr. Pizzulli here?
Certified mailing receipts and return receipts. Okay.
There's actually an expediter, Carol Chang, and she couldn't be here either, so
Okay.
in lieu of both of them.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
It's acceptable.
This is acceptable.
Good.
That's it? Okay. Thank you. That's it?
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record, please?
Patricia Kamiatek, K-M-I-O-T-E-K. And I'm here, my address, I'm sorry, 23 Loft Road, Smithtown, New York, right across the street from 22 Loft.
Okay.
So yes, I'm one of the neighbors. It's a horse community. It's a barn that actually we thought did meet the requirements because it's just 24 feet from the property line, which I believe on R43, the barn has to be 24 feet from the property line. And all the properties in that neighborhood most of them are 100 feet wide. So it's hard to meet that, but the barn is 24 feet from the property line on one side. So we were surprised that we needed a variance. The barn has been there since 1968. I have 2 old surveys here. John's parents bought the house with the barn there, and he didn't realize that the house is for sale, so he didn't realize that it didn't have a CO, so we're here to get that CO for the barn. But we thought that it didn't need a variance. We were just getting the CO because it is 24 feet from the property line, but the town said something about the house didn't meet the setbacks or something. We were confused about that.
Just the barn, not the house.
Right, that's what we were getting the CO for, but they were saying there was a problem, even though it is
Well,
about,
It's because the
ahead.
one
The
side yard
house,
on the house.
the
is
one
only
side yard on the
24.
house is 24 feet, and the barn is 24 feet, so that gives you a total of 48 feet, not 60 feet.
Oh.
I'm sorry, was I supposed to answer something?
He was just explaining it.
Okay.
So you do need it.
Okay, so we have all the letters from the neighborhood. It is a horse community, everybody has barns there. It's, we have all the letters set back, and I don't know if anybody's here, but
All right,
we're just hoping that we get it approved.
okay, fine. Anyone on board have any questions on the application?
No.
Planning?
Oh, thank you.
Does anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Nope, may have enough. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18272, James Cozzarano, 16 Canna Drive, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the north side of Canna Drive, 205 feet west of Dewberry Place. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard from 16 feet to 2 feet and the total side yards from 34 feet to 19 feet for an existing 50-square-foot shed.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. As you stated, I'm here tonight to request relief from the building zoning ordinance.
Could you just state your name and address for the
My
record,
name is
please?
James Cozzarano, and I reside at 16 Canna Drive.
Thank you.
I'm here to request relief from the building zoning ordinance as stated. The variance requested to reduce the side yard for an existing 50-square-foot shed. We bought the house in 2012, and I know this isn't proof of an existing variance or permit, but there was a shed there in the location. The shed was existing. in that location. So we had assumed, since we, cleared title and had it on our survey, that we had, that the paperwork was there, but no, it wasn't, obviously. We came to find out. The shed is, since the orientation of the property, we're on that cul-de-sac, the shed is actually over 100 feet from the front property line and about 120 feet from the curb. So it is very far from, the frontage. Most people's front yard begins at that point. I'm sorry, most people's backyard begins at that point. So essentially, it would be in the backyard if we were in a different setting. The shed, as you can see, I think it's well-designed, well-built, it's quality, and, it's somewhat pleasing to the eye, if you like barns. There's no other real location for the shed on the property due to the back third is very wooded and sloped. There's also a pool on the property in the patio. Again, not self-created. We bought it with a pool there, but obviously we knew the pool was there. They didn't hide that. We're asking the board to grant us forgiveness, and approve the requested relief. To hit the 5 considerations, we believe, number one, there would be zero change the character of the neighborhood. If it is, if it would please the board, we would be, offer to plant a tree in front of it to block it from the frontage if that was, so, if that would help anything. But like I said, I think it's pretty nice looking. As I stated, there's no other real place to locate the shed on the property. I don't believe it's substantial. It's a 50-foot, square foot shed, so I don't, that's somewhat subjective, but I don't think it's substantial. The fourth, the proposed variance will not create any adverse effects or impacts on the environment. It's pre-existing. It's been pre-existing since, I believe, 2008. The previous owners installed the shed. So again, I don't believe that there's any change or adverse effect to the environment. And again, I don't feel that it was, the difficulty was self-created where we have no other real place to locate this shed. Because if I could move it, I would into the required back, rear yard. But beyond that north fence, like as I stated, the property is very wooded and somewhat sloped, so it really wouldn't accommodate the shed at that point. Like I said, I would be asking for relief from the board if you felt it, the ability to grant that, we would appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
Does that shed house your pool equipment?
My pool equipment, no. The pool equipment is just north of where the shed sits in the rear yard. See, it's kind of the southeast corner of.
Yeah. The only reason I asked is there was a note on your survey. It says pool equipment shed, so.
I think the notes just kind of overlap just because it's crowded in that area. I think it just says shed and then pool equipment.
And then shed.
Exactly, right.
Okay, thank you.
A drafting issue, I believe.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18273, Eric Maria, 16 Loxley Lane, Wisconsin, the location of the property, the northwest corner of Loxley Lane and Robin Hood Court. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard on Robin Hood Court from 40 feet to 10 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 38-foot in-ground swimming pool, and from 40 feet to 4 feet for a proposed pool heater and filter. To reduce the front yard on Robin Hood Court from 10 feet to 0 for an existing 6-foot fence.
Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Eric Marier. Last name is Maryea. Gamarier. We reside at 16 Loxley Lane, Wisconsin, New York. We are the owners of the property. We are here today requesting a variance to, among other things, install an in-ground swimming pool in our backyard. We began exploring an in-ground pool in October, at which time we were informed by several pool companies that we would likely have to file a variance since our property is a corner lot and our backyard is considered by town code to be a front yard. What we were unaware of until the time of the initial permit application filing was that the fence installed by the prior homeowners in 2012, the receipt for which we were able to obtain from the company that did the installation and was previously included in the variance package. If the board is not in possession of said receipt, we can provide it today. Do you have the receipt or do you need it?
If you would like to submit it, we'll take it. Thank you.
We've been aware that the fence is on the property line, which, if we were on a non-corner lot, would be considered an acceptable placement of a backyard fence. The current fence was in fact a replacement for a previously existing fence in the same location dating back until at least the early 90s. We have photos of the current fence facing toward Robin Hood Court, which depict the limited privacy even the 6-foot fence affords given the higher grade of the homes located behind us. We also have photos of our fence's current placement, commensurate with the placement of fences in relation to property lines for all other adjacent lots, beginning with our immediate neighbor and all others heading towards Gibbs Pond Road. Our fence simply continues along the same property line as all of the other homes located on Loxley Lane. We would like to present those photos and an aerial view of the fence lines as we stated.
Thank you.
In keeping with the spirit and purpose of the Board of Zoning Appeals, we engaged in dialogue with many of our neighbors regarding our variance application to ensure that what we were requesting would not create or sustain an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or create an adverse effect or impact on the physical conditions of the neighborhood. None of the neighbors with whom we spoke believed our variance application created any of the above conditions. As a result of those conversations, we have received letters from 10 of our immediate neighbors surrounding our property who would be most affected by the presence of the fence if it were to pose a hazard or create an undesirable change, all of whom appeal alongside us to this board to allow the current fence to remain in place. We respectfully submit those letters to the board for your consideration.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add that half of the letters are supplied by homeowners of the original development, Saxton Estates, when it was erected in 1976. The variance would not produce an impact on the adjacent properties in the neighborhood because the in-ground swimming pool structure will be confined to the area enclosed within the 6-foot PVC fence erected by the prior homeowners. By accounts of property owners of adjacent properties and receipts provided by the fence company, the fence was erected in May 2012 and replaced a previously existing fence. In that time, there have been no known reported public health, safety, or welfare issues. The request is not substantial because the proposed in-ground swimming pool will be confined to the area traditionally considered to be a backyard and non-corner lots. We are seeking relief from the front yard setbacks based on corner lot status and placement of PVC fence by prior homeowner, with the rear setback commensurate with the setback of adjoining properties. The benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative because the orientation of the lot is unique based on the abutment to a rear street and court. The property is located on an irregularly shaped, irregularly situated, and relatively small rear yard given the placement of the permanent structure, hampering the degree to which the proposed designs could be altered to complete the proposed objective. The variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment because the swimming pool will be installed with adherence to all current building codes and applicable laws by a professional pool company with a history of successful and compliant installations of other pools within the town of Smithtown. In summary, we're simply asking the board to consider the fence's current placement as acceptable and grant a 0-foot setback. We do not reside on a traditional corner lot situated on a 90-degree angle. Rather, our lot is irregularly shaped and situated, forming an acute angle at the southwest corner of our property at approximately 45 degrees. Additionally, the rear property line abutting Robin Hood Court curves as it approaches the southwest corner of the lot, narrowing in clearance as it approaches the northwest corner of our home. Requiring the recessing of fence along the entire rear property line bordering Robin Hood Court would create a practical difficulty by effectively decimating our rear yard and rendering installation of a pool impractical, if not impossible, and severely limiting the function of our backyard. I'm happy to address any questions if the board has any.
Okay. We were at your property today, and you do have a very irregular lot. I'd just like to add, coming down Robin Hood Court, the existing fence poses no obstruction of any kind to any traffic coming up Loxley Lane.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there is a stop sign located there and a
Correct.
speed sign around that turn.
Right. Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Oh, thanks.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18274, Gaetano Ludnig, 18 Fordham Road, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Fordham Road, 125 feet west of New York Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard from 25 feet to 18 feet for an existing 143 square foot roof over front porch.
Power of attorney?
Are there two agents being appointed?
Yes, myself and my boss,
And you are?
Christina Bravin.
Okay. The only person that signed it is Diana.
She's the owner.
Oh, I'm sorry, the paper was out of order. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Everything's all right? Okay.
The pages were in the wrong.
Good evening, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
evening.
Members
Could you
of the board.
Could you state your name, spell your last name, and the address for the record?
It's Christina Bravin, Bravin, 28 Edward Street, Bethpage, New York, 11714. It's Morano Expediting, agent for the homeowner. Gaetano Ludini. It's 18 Fordham Road, 18 Fordham Drive, Smithtown. We're here tonight requesting permission to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet for a roofed-over front porch. It is partially existing. They did start construction. They had no idea that a overhang, as they thought it was, would require a permit. So they did receive a stop work order, and they ceased all work, filed the permit, and we're here tonight requesting this variance. It is 6 feet 6 inches deep, 22 feet wide. The house is approximately 78 feet wide. The original dwelling does not meet the zoning requirement, as it only holds 23.4 feet setback off of the front yard. There was a previous roof over. It was much smaller, posed an issue due to the fact that the homeowner is handicapped. He does use a wheelchair primarily, occasionally a walker. He shattered his hip and his ankle. The porch tends to just be exposed and is dangerous when it's exposed to the elements. It gets icy. So they decided to construct a larger overhang so that they can get a little more coverage and have a little more safety. The neighbors to the east have a roof over porch, as well as the neighbor directly to the north across the street, so they feel it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It wouldn't pose a detriment. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. The next case on the agenda is case number 18275, Reinhardt Anderson, 52 Vanderbilt Avenue, St. James. The location of the property, the south side of Vanderbilt Avenue, 700 feet west of Pierpont Street. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum east side yard from 12 feet to 5 feet for an existing 544 square foot roof over patio. Reduce the minimum west side yard from 12 feet to 4 feet for an existing 126 square foot shed. Reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 9 feet to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 36%, which is existing.
Reinhardt,
evening.
yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Reinhardt Anderson, I'll spell both of them because I have two last names. It's Reinhardt is R-E-I-N-H-A-R-D-T, Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-C-N. My address, 52 Vanderbilt Avenue, St. James, New York, 11780. I have a gentleman that would speak, if you don't mind.
Fine, thank you. Good evening.
Good members of the board. My name is Dean Koutsoumbis. It's D-E-A-N-K-O-U-T-S-O-U-M-B-I-S. My address is 121 Newbridge Road, Hicksville, New York, 11801. Members of the board, tonight I'm here with Mr. and Mrs. Anderson of 52 Vanderbilt Avenue in St. James. We're seeking variances for three items. We're asking for to legalize an existing shed, legalize an existing paved area, and legalize a proposed roof over. It's considered built prior because it was started without permits. They did subsequently get a stop work order, and our goal is to legalize this roof over. So the shed and the pavement have been there for several years. More recently, they started building this proposed roof over area off to the side of the house, leaving a setback of 5.7 feet where the requirement is 12 feet, and total side yards to 9 feet where the requirement is 28 feet. A lot has to do with the setbacks. Is also the shed is also located in the side, in the opposite side yard, thus further reducing the setback to 9 feet from the total requirement of 28 feet. The rear paved area, we're at 36%. The paved area that we're asking for is 1,204 square feet, where the requirement is 875 square feet maximum. So we're at 36%, where the requirement is 25%. This may seem substantial, but it's also because of the pool. It's a rather large pool, and there's a lot of paved area completely around the pool, and it's also surrounded by landscaping. Now, back to our most substantial variance. Is this proposed or under construction roofed over patio. I'd like to emphasize to the board that it is an open patio, outside space with just a roof, no enclosure, no screens, no glass, not heated space. They're willing to condition that it will remain an open patio space. I'd also like to tell the board that this patio, previously existed. And the pavement for the patio is not part of the overage that we're asking for the rear yard paved area. So the pavement, it already exists as a patio, just without a roof on it. So right now, their goal is to finish building this structure with a roof, so that way it's an outdoor patio space protected from the elements and covered. Unless there's any further questions from the board, that would conclude my presentation.
All right.
And the owners would like to speak, and I believe there's also some neighbors which would like to speak as well.
All right, well, can I go back up, sir? Oh, certainly, yeah.
I just want to let the board know that I have 2 letters of consent from neighbors across the street that I would like to present.
Thank you.
I just would like to reiterate what the expediter said was this is just going to be, it's never going to be an enclosed living space. We're just very outdoorsy people. I like to grill, and I just, for the inclement weather, or a day like today, I could be out there. It's something I really enjoy. We really just enjoy the outside. We've tried, pop-up things and blow over, and the rain comes in between the things. So it's just trying to develop something a little bit more permanent, just to enjoy the outside. It's not going to be any living space. And with that, I just respectfully request your consideration in this matter.
All right, thank you. Are you going to speak, young lady? No? Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
Just one question. Can anyone tell me what the height, the roof height of the roof over would be?
Okay. The ridge height is set at 13 foot 8 inches with eave heights at 8 foot 10 inches.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? All right, come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Slattery. Last name is S like in Samuel, Lattery. I live at 50 Vanderbilt Avenue in St. James. I'm the next door neighbor. Just some comments. Everything they're doing here is to the back and the back side of their property. You'd really have to come down our street and stand in front of the house and stare at it to see this. I'm a neighbor on one side. I have no problem. I'm on the west side with what they're doing. Behind us, by the way, is the Long Island Railroad. I doubt they have any problem with what's going on. They're not the best neighbor. Just last but not least, just wanted to say the Andersons are excellent neighbors. They keep their house in impeccable condition, and I'm okay with everything that's going on.
All right,
Okay?
thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Peter Atanasio, Atanasio. I live at 54 Vanderbilt Avenue. I'm actually on the opposite side of the house where Mr. Anderson is building. The structure is, on the side of my house. It really doesn't bother me. I've been there for 20 years. We've known each other for 20 years. We've gotten along. We've never had any problems, and I'm sure he knew exactly what he was doing when he had that structure designed for that. So for my approval, he's doing a good thing.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? No. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
It's hard to have nice
people. Motion carried. Thank you.
You know?
What?
I like to have nice people coming in.
Yeah. Peter ready.
That's fine, I'd like to discuss in the executive session.
All right. The next case on the agenda, case number 1-17981, David Ameti, 51 Winnecomack Circle, Kings Park. The location of the property is the south side of Winnecomack Circle, 975 feet east of Old Comack Road. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit temporary living quarters for a parent, a variance to increase the floor area for temporary living quarters from 600 square feet to 1,142 square feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 60 feet to 55 feet for an existing 73 square foot first floor addition, to reduce the minimum side yard from 10 feet to 1 foot, reduce total side yards from 20 feet to 12 feet for an existing 35 square foot shed, and to increase the maximum gross floor area from 25% to 35%.
Good evening.
Come on.
Good evening. David just stepped out to the bathroom, so he'll be back in 2 seconds. Do you want to wait for him, or do you want me to just start?
I need the applicant.
Sorry, I thought we were last on the list. Sorry.
Just introduce yourself and say your
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Ahmedi. Last name is Ahmedy, and I reside at 51 Winnecomack Circle, Kings Park, New York, 11754.
And you'd like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I do.
And the young lady also?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, fine.
Hi, my name is Daniela Felgueras, Felgueiras. I work with the architect, and I live at 61 St. Peter's Drive, Brentwood, New York, 11717.
Thank you.
Now, I'm Pong Moy, last name M-U-I, from Mancini Moy Architecture, 222 Middle Country Road, Suite 314, Smithtown. So the variances that we're requesting is, I'll just read through the list, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 60 feet to 55 feet, increase maximum floor, gross floor area ratio of lot from 25% to 35%, special exception to permit living quarters for a parent, and increase the floor area for temporary living quarters from 600 to 1,142 square feet. We got this memo from the town of Smithtown, from the planning department, with their recommendations on the application. Although I do understand, actually, let's go through this list first. Whether an undesirable change will be produced to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties will be created or granted of an area variance. There's a couple of things that I have to say about that. The first part is Mr. Mehdi bought this piece of property from a developer, and at the time when they bought this piece of property, they were not aware that the house was built to a 30% FAR, and I guess they went for a variance for that FAR back in 2002, where the planning department approved pending not converting half the two-car garage. So it says was a detriment to the nearby properties by granting the area variance. I somewhat disagree, because the building was already there. A garage conversion is not increasing the footprint of the house, so therefore it's not increasing the actual visibility of the house. It's just an internal conversion that they did. So it's not like they were asking for a 1,000 square foot addition to the side of a house where it's way overdeveloped. It's just literally an interior conversion of an existing space. Whether the benefit could be sought by applicant can be achieved by some method feasible to the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. In my opinion, this is the least intrusive way to add living space to an existing structure. Is converting is two things that you could do: convert a garage that's already there, or finishing a basement. So by putting the habitable square footage on the first floor, I don't think it's very detriment. The request area variance is substantial. Yes, on paper it is substantial, but in reality it's converting space that's already existing. Will it have an adverse effect on the impact of physical conditions in the neighborhood or district? No, it doesn't, because it's an existing footprint. If anyone who looked out front of the house, you can't even tell the difference if it was a garage or if it was living space. The alleged difficulty was self-created. Yes, he did convert the garage without the proper permits, which we're trying to remedy now. And I'll go through the second paragraph here, which it says the submitted plans of the existing home indicates there are 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, 2 kitchens for the first and second floor. Additionally, it appears that the basement's been converted to habitable floor space, including a kitchen, bathroom, 2 rooms as identified as den, and a laundry room, numerous closets. There are a total of 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, and 3 kitchens in the home. Addressing the kitchen in the basement, they don't use that, so if the board has any problems with that kitchen in the basement, we can have it removed. That's not an issue. As far as the one side of the house, you could probably ask, okay, if his mother and dad is living there, why do you need 3 bedrooms? Actually, Mr. Medi's father has problems sleeping. So actually, the mother and the father actually sleep in different bedrooms. He snores very loud, and any noise that he hears, it actually wakes him up. So they actually sleep in 2 different bedrooms. That's why there's more than 1 bedroom on that side of the house. And then they also have grandkids that come visit, so they stay with them. That's why they have the extra bedroom for that side of the house. And then Mr. Amedi himself has 2 kids, so that's why they have 3 bedrooms on that side of the house. The applicant is requesting to reduce the minimum setback from 10 foot to 1 foot and to 20 foot to 12 foot, increase the floor area. We went over the floor area. As far as the side yard setback, if the board has an issue with the side yard setback for the accessory structures, we could have them moved to a new location. It's just that Mr. Medi has kids and they play in the backyard, so if he can move to the shed to the back, it was really necessary. But if it's not, he would like to leave it where it is. And as far as the temporary living quarters from 600 square feet to 1,142 square feet, I understand the intent of the code for the temporary living quarters, that the town doesn't want 2-family houses on a single-family lot. But also coming from Mr. Medi's culture, and in fact my culture, in our culture, it's tradition that the son always takes care of their parents. In our culture, they don't have 401ks, they don't have pensions, so it's just what happens in our culture. You're expected to have your parents live with you as they age out and they don't work anymore. So although I understand the intent of the 600 square feet, I mean, when my parents retire and they will live with me, I would not want to put them in the 600 square foot apartment. A 600 square foot apartment is a 24 by 24 room. Yes, is it nice, but for someone that moved to this country in the first generation, working minimum wage for 30 years, put me through school, put David through school, I would not want to do that to my parents either. And I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yes. Since you brought up the garage,
Yes.
Last time you were here, the applicant agreed to limit the amount of the garage conversion to provide one stall.
Yes.
So you're only supposed to do half the garage. You did the whole
Yes.
thing. Not only did you do the whole thing, you put another front door in.
Yes, for that I have no, I mean, David did it.
We had the door on the side.
Well, just,
I'm sorry.
well, if you want to speak,
Okay.
just
go ahead.
come to the mic so we get it on the
I
record.
mean, the reason for the door change was that it was on the side of the house, and the kids just hated using that door because of the raccoons they were having. So, the raccoons, we had raccoons on the side of the house. We had an issue with the raccoons, and they were just terrified of coming in and out of the house from the side. So we decided to move the door to the front of the house.
Okay, and just go over one more time for me. Right now, there's 3 kitchens,
Correct. There's 2 kitchens on the first floor.
just 3
Oh,
kitchens. How many
correct.
bedrooms do you have?
A total of 6 bedrooms.
6 bedrooms. And how many bathrooms?
A total of 5 bathrooms.
5 bathrooms. Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Yeah, my question has to do with the previous approval or lack thereof of the floor area ratio.
Yes.
Can you help me understand that was structure expanded or?
Well, the only thing that we, the structure pretty much stayed the same, yeah. The structure was always that size. The only thing that we're doing in this area variance is that little piece in the back where they put a laundry room. But other than that, this whole structure was intact. It was how he bought it.
Is it how it was built or was it
Yes.
built prior, after, before?
No, it was
prior to
how-
this person owning it, but after it was originally built. So there is no previous approval for a 35% structure.
So in my research, looking through all of the prior files, what I found was that when the subdivision was approved and the building permits were issued for the house, apparently the square footage of the house actually exceeded the maximum allowable FAR for the zoning district. But nobody picked up on that. Ultimately, what happened was when the applicant came in, my understanding from reading the previous files, there was a request to add a second-story addition and convert the garage from a garage to habitable floor area. So the actual, not the footprint of the house, but the square footage of the house increased, or was proposed to be increased.
The habitable square footage of the house.
Right.
But garage is counted in FAR anyway.
It is counted in FAR, yes.
Okay, so this is just something that somebody missed on the town level at some point during the subdivision?
During the process of issuing permits and doing inspections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
No question.
No? Planning?
Just that the board is aware that planning did a planning advisory report. I basically laid out briefly the history of the property from the time the subdivision was approved until the house was built. And there was 1 or 2 prior BZA applications that came before the board for FAR, for a minor addition, and for the conversion or partial conversion of garage space to habitable floor area. I picked up, looking at the floor plans, that there was 5 bedrooms. Mr. Ametti said that there's 6. Also that there are six bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and 3 kitchens. I would imagine that the health department may have an issue with that. So, certainly one suggestion would be to get some kind of approval, if the board were looking to move forward with this application, to get some kind of approval from the health department as to what their status of it would be.
Yeah, we're well aware if you guys approve this application, we're gonna have to go to wastewater management and update his septic system. It's not a problem, we could update it.
Right.
Yeah, that's my whole argument, that he didn't build this house was approved that way, and we're just doing a straight garage conversion. I understand what Blaze is saying, that the FAR is over, but it's not something that he created. It was built and it was approved, and the town and the building has a CO for it. So we're not increasing the footprint. We're not asking for an addition. We're just using the existing footprint.
Right. Anything else?
Just basically, planning recommended in the planning advisory report that before the board does make a decision, assuming that a secret determination is issued and the board wants to make a decision on it, that before that time, you know, perhaps the board or maybe the building department may want to do an on-site inspection and, you know, take stock of what's there and then take it from there.
Right.
Yes, I was already spoke to Mr. Ahmedi. If the board wants to come visit and walk through to prove to you that it is just his parents living there, there's nobody in the basement. I saw in the report that Blaze said it could be another apartment in the basement, but that's not the case. It's just a finished basement, like 90% of the houses out there. So if the board wants to walk through, he has no problems with it.
All right, thank you. And just so you know, there'll be no decision tonight on this. We don't have a sequel. We have to wait for the sequel to
Yep, no
come in.
problem. We understand.
All right.
There's one other thing I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Just to let the applicant know, I guess this goes back about a year and a half ago when the application first came into our office. There were photographs of the rear of the house that showed a wooden deck area and concrete around the in-ground pool in the backyard. And apparently, the most recent aerial by Google Earth shows that the decking and the concrete have been removed and that there are now pavers in the backyard. So what I would suggest is that to avoid another issue, that you show this to the building department and find out if there's going to be any kind of a requirement for a variance for excessive paving in the rear yard.
Okay.
I do have a question. With the PAR for use for family, the zoning ordinance contains 13 standards. They do not meet these standards, am I correct?
The general standards?
The general standards.
That's something that would be questionable, yes.
Okay.
Are they requesting variances from those standards in the call?
Well, they're requesting a variance from the floor area. That's a specific variance to a temporary living quarter. But there are 13 general standards in the ordinance that pertain to all special exceptions, you know, that touch on a broad number of things such as, you know, character of the neighborhood, you know, being in harmony, is it in line with the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance?
They're not the specific special.
They're not specific, no. They're general. That's why they say they're
Okay.
general. That's it.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. And that concludes our hearing for tonight.